Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Chats with Charlie. And we're doing it Zoom style today because, as you can see, we've got a special guest today, Jessica De La Rosa, who is an artistic associate and one of the lead teachers on the studio class. I, along with Jen Pennington, are teachers of the Apprentice class, and today's Chat with Charlie is focused on the studio Apprentice group, but of course anybody of any age can watch these videos and learn something. So we're going to be talking a little bit about Shakespeare today, because that of course is what the studio and apprentice group study in the spring semester traditionally. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at a couple of clips, and then Jess and I are gonna maybe stop and comment about them and give you our impressions of them, and then give you some other resources that you can look at through YouTube and other sources too, to keep everything fresh in your mind, everything that we've gone over for this whole semester. So Jess, before we start the videos, I just want to review with everybody some of the little technical traits that we were dropping in this semester. If you go back to when we were looking at our sonnets, and the reason we like
in Apprentice, you were doing sonnets.
Yeah, in Apprentice we were doing sonnets. That's true. That's a good point. So let me just remind the Apprentice guys, and you should have your sonnet in your Walden folder. So it's a great thing to pull out and just practice once in a while, because we like using these sonnets because it's got all these technical roadmaps in it that we are talking about. So the first thing is obvious, that when you encounter a comma at the end of your verse line, you want to keep going. You don't want to downward inflect your voice because you're not finished with the thought, okay? When you see a semicolon or a period, you do want to go ahead and downward inflect your voice. Remember too that when you get to monosyllabic phrases, one syllable words strung together, you want to slow down, okay? Polysyllabic phrases, you want to speed up your pace, all right? So there you've got your pace right in there. And also with the sonnets, oftentimes there's 2, maybe 3 thoughts in the whole thing. So there's usually one big transition in the sonnets, usually a word like yet or then or something like that. So remember those type of targets, because when you get to a transition, it's a perfect time to change your pitch, to change your speed, your rhythm, and your tone to help indicate that you're at that transition. So go through those sonnets and look at that. And in fact, apply it. I know, Jess, you guys are doing Midsummer, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so go through your scripts and try to practice applying those simple technical rules. You know, there's very few rules in theater, okay, and in Shakespeare included, but there are some technical roadmaps. We know this. His actors were not Juilliard-trained actors, so Shakespeare put a lot of these clues right into his writing to tell you when to speed up, when to slow down, and when your train of thought is finished, okay? One of my favorites, sonnet, I think it's 29, it goes 8 lines before you even get to a period. So, no downward inflecting. And if you're trying to say all that on one breath, you want to make your pace pretty swift. Okay, Jess, so that's my reminder to my students about how you can take your material that you have now and practice at home. Because what I've always said, and this is true, conscious calculation becomes unconscious reflex. You're not going to get good at this unless you practice. And we as actors, we can't just practice in class. That's where we go to really sort of work out the things that we've been doing on our own. I mean, acting is a skill that really requires a lot of self-discipline to practice it at home. And since we're all at home now, you've got the material in your folders to do that.
Great. Yeah, one of the things that you brought up, Charlie, which I think is really interesting, you said there's not a lot of rules. And what I like to do when I'm talking about Shakespeare, instead of thinking rules, I think tools. So you've touched on some pretty specific techniques. And one thing that I love about Shakespeare is that there are many schools of techniques. So a lot of these things that are about punctuation or inflection, these are all really specific technical terms that you're talking about. There's a lot of different views on a lot of different things. You can do the first folio technique. Peter Hall has a whole school of thought. And I know you really love John Barton, who I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit as we get into these things.
Well, I also like Patrick Tucker.
Yeah, you like
wrote the
Patrick
book
Tucker.
on the original
Kaiser. Yeah, there's a lot of different people who sort of make their own rules or tools for people to discover what's really rich about Shakespeare's text. So I'm interested to see what differences that we might see in these scenes, dependent on what techniques or what schools of thought that they were following. Now in the studio class, we're just really starting to dive into what we call scansion for the actor, and character development based on the images in Shakespeare's language and things like that. It's the first time that we're really diving in rich into those tools. So we might have a different general sense of understanding of what we can do with verse lines or with argument and beat structure. And it's true that sonnets have a very specific beat structure, and that it's its own set of tools versus what you might work on in a scene or even in a monologue. So in our studio class, when we're just getting into that, we're really sort of looking for some of those fun, vibrant images and different alliterative phrases and annotative phrases that can help that language come alive, that keeps you more in the words, while still paying attention to the punctuation and to those things, but sort of attacking it from a different viewpoint. And I should say that I did teach studio, but I taught it with an incredible team. Keith McGill and Meg Cottle were on that team this semester, and they had brilliant stagings of A Midsummer Night's Dream, which I know we were having a lot of fun with. So you students, if you're looking at your script, start to think of some of the things that we might talk about in these next scenes.
Yeah, that's good.
Right.
So let's, what do you have up first?
Well, first I have a confession that I am technologically challenged in so many ways. So as we get this together.
Between the two of us, it's going to have to be you doing this.
Bear with us. So now, first we're going to take a look at one of my favorite scenes. This comes from what you know as the Scottish play. But since I'm not in a theater, I can say it. This is Macbeth. And this is Judi Dench doing the famous sleepwalking scene. And so we're going to look at a little bit of that and talk about some of the things that we see. I'm going to share my screen with you now. And I should say, we don't own these videos. You can look up different interpretations and things as they might be uploaded on YouTube and other platforms. All right, are you ready, Charlie?
I'm ready.
I want to go ahead and start. You can see we're starting a little bit further in at the beginning. The nurse and the doctor have stumbled upon her walk. Can
I say one thing? Well, no, let me wait until it's over.
Okay, great. So we'll probably stop in between, but let's go ahead. I'm going to come right on Lady M's entrance.
Asleep. You see, her eyes are open. Aye, but their senses are shut. What is it she does now? Look how she rubs her hands. It is an accustomed action with her to seem thus, washing her hands. I have known her continuing this a quarter of an hour. Yet, here's a spot. She's out. Damn spot out, I say.
Great, let's pause there for just 1 second while we're looking at it. I want to bring up something that I think is so sort of interesting about the way that Shakespeare works in just this tiny little bit of text. When you've got what we might call pretty direct language from the nurse and the doctor talking about what they see, And even during the sleepwalking scene, the way they've staged this, how Judi Dench just sort of comes straight through there, bursting through them, and they follow her, and she's already in this dream-like place. And we see that immediately, we know that her language is a little bit different because it's a little more already starting to be dreamy in the shortness of the words, and she's whispering them, but she's still speaking in direct language. So I think it's an interesting juxtaposition between what we might see as a pedantic exchange versus something in the way that she's interpreting it should be direct language, but it's not. It's heightened and dreamy in its own way.
Well, and you know, too, one of the things I like about this whole production is that, I mean, nowadays Shakespeare in the cinema is semi-common. I mean, it's done pretty frequently, but this one, as you can tell, I don't know what year this is, but it's several decades old. And what I like about it is the curious lighting. I mean, it really feels like they just took the production and moved it into a studio and just did it. You know, there's no cinematic special effects. It really does feel like a theater production, and I think that's pretty cool about this particular production.
Yeah, and Macbeth is known as to be one of the first plays that ever used lighting as an element, with the footlights at the beginning of the stage. So what's really exciting about this is the play already works with tons of imagery and light and darkness. And by the time we get to this scene, it is the whole play is very dark. She comes out with just a candle on stage.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. That is theatrical as opposed to cinematic.
Yep.
I mean, they could have used anything, but they chose to use just that single candle. Yep. And with that light and the way she's playing the scene, it's effectively creepy with very little.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't take much. All right, let's see what's happening next.
Well then, just time to do it. Hell is murky. By my Lord Fie, a soldier and feared. What need we fear, who knows it, when none can call our power to account? Yet who would have thought the old man to have had so much blood in him? Do you mark that? The Thane of Fife had a wife. Where is she now? What will these hands never be clean?
All right, let's pause for just 1 second before we get into this next bit, which I'm super excited about talking about. What I love, again, the erratic part of her speech, even though you've got some direct language in there and then a little bit of some nonsensical phrases, and you hear that he brings that sing-songy rhyming in there. The Thane of Fife had a wife, so we know that she's still sort of in this dream-like state, and she's obviously getting a little more emotional. Now, what we're about to come up on, Charlie, is my favorite thing in all of Shakespeare. What is probably one of the most famous things that we all know, that big letter, the O, that's in the middle of a verse line oftentimes. And a lot of people think that's sort of the quintessential Shakespeare thing, like, oh, Romeo, Romeo. But what's really fun, it's sort of the best actor's gift. That O has a big fancy name for it. It's called an ekphonesis O, which means to cry out in passion. And so when Shakespeare puts it in there, he doesn't want you to just say, oh. That's a gift for you to really sort of bring whatever the emotion or whatever the circumstances out into the world. So in the verse line that comes up for Lady Macbeth is 3 O's right next to each other. O, comma, O, comma, O, comma. So let's see.
And that does not occur with a lot of frequency in Shakespeare.
No,
so
no,
this is
not at all.
obviously a moment of great pitch and worth here.
Yeah, so let's see what Judi Dench does with it.
No more of that, my lord, no more of that. You marred all with this starting.
You have known what you should not.
She has spoke what she should not, I'm sure of that. Heaven knows what she has known.
Here's the smell of the blood. Still. All the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand.
The heart is sorely charged.
Wow. All right. Let's stop that right there. All right, Charlie, I'm going to come back to where it's just the two of us on the screen so we can talk about that. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, you know, we haven't seen Lady M for a long time, right? This is, she's gone for many, many critical scenes. And, I mean, when last we saw her, we could see things were starting to crumble, right? And that she was just the very beginnings of her losing it. But so obviously this scene, you know, it's very important because she's back in the play again. And oftentimes I've seen it over, you know, over the top. And the way I love this because it's so hushed, it's so whispered, because I'm of the opinion that this play is so strangled. It's so, everybody's always in a room right next door. It's so hushed and frantic the whole time. And when I see a lot of screaming, I always think, oh no, come on, he's right in the next room. You can't scream that.
Right, right.
And so that's what I loved. And then of course, when you talk about the the point you were making is that is the one of the things that's completely up to the actor director interpretation. You know, that could have been short and staccato, or it could have been this, that, or the other. But it was almost like she was underwater.
Oh yeah, definitely lamentous. I mean, and just sort of exhaling of all of the grief and stress for sure. I just think it was such a brave choice. That's what we talk a lot about too in the classes, like be brave. Because as an actor, that can be super vulnerable to stand in front of somebody and just make a sound that expresses what you're going through in that moment or conveys a certain circumstance. And that's really terrifying. But I always teach that exact moment of Judi Dench, the bravest O that I've ever seen back to back on those. All right.
Well, now maybe we should look at our comedy.
Yeah, let me see. I'm going to now, oh, Judi Dench is still talking. Hold on. I told you I'm technologically.
Yeah. Judy's about to fling herself off the battlements.
Okay. All right. Let me share the screen now. And we're going to go into a little bit of comedy like we talked about. We have been working on A Midsummer Night's Dream.
The studio game.
I'm clicking the wrong thing. Oh no. What have I done? That's what I need. All right.
No, you got it.
Midsummer Night's Dream is what we're working on in studio. And so this is a comedy, a little bit different than the tragedy of Macbeth. And this is from the Globes production in 2014. So I think, you know what? Let's just get started.
Oh, me! You, Chocolate! You canker blossom, you thief of love! What have you come by night and stolen my love's heart from him? Fine, face! Have you no modesty, no maiden shame, no touch of bashfulness? What, will you tear impatient answers from my gentle tongue? Fie, you counterfeit, you puppet, you!
So right there, we see something that's so popular, obviously, in Shakespeare's plays was what we call direct address. You can see how she is at Hermia is talking to Helena, and then you see her sort of look out and she's talking to the audience. And that's because during Shakespeare's day, the audience was inches away from you, and Shakespeare's Globe continues to do productions like that. But he would write the plays with the people in mind. So you were just as much a part of the production as the actors were. And you could see.
Yeah, and one of the things that Patrick Tucker told me, I was fortunate enough to be in a play that he directed, but he was very much a rules guy, and he said, without exception, anytime that you're alone on stage, you are talking to the audience in Shakespeare. So
yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and the Globe, this is a Globe production, as you can see, and they really have this mission to do it as accurately to the time as possible. So a lot of talking to the audience.
Yeah, very cool. All right, let's keep going.
Yeah, keep going, and then
I hate this scene because I am so dwarfish and so low. How low am I, thou painted slave coach? Speak! How low am I? I am not yet so low but that my nails can reach unto thine eyes. I pray you got your wrong clue, gentlemen. That should not curse me. I was never cursed. I am with a tool and shrewishness. I am a right maid for my coward. What cannot strike me? You perhaps may think because she is something lower than myself that I can match her. No, hearken, God! But Hermia, do not be so bitter with me. I evermore did love you, Hermia. Did ever keep your counsels, never wronged you. Say but in love unto Demetrius. I told him of yourself unto this word. He followed you for love. I followed him. He chid me hence and threatened me to strike me, spurn me to kill me too.
All right, so you know what's so funny about this specific part of stage combat? For those of you that know the story, these four lovers have come into the woods and the fairies have gotten involved and everybody loves the wrong person at this point. And it is one big love, not even, I mean, I guess it's a rectangle, but what I love about this stage combat is this really shows that Helena is in love with Demetrius, but currently Demetrius and Lysander are mistakenly in love with Helena. No one loves Hermia anymore. And so you can see how it's complicated. And I think that they've done a great job just in the combat of that, showing this in this still image of how complicated those relationships have become.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I like this scene in particular, I know you guys were doing the whole play, but using this scene in class, I mean, I've used it for 25 years because it is, from the moment Lysander comes in, he's saying, why should you think that I woo and scorn and derision never come into, he's literally crying. I mean, the energy from that moment all the way through the time she says, I'm amazed and know not what to say, is a real technical test. Yeah. And it requires a lot of breath, energy to get through it, and yet still concentrate on providing a little bit of variety when it comes to that. It can't all be one tone,
right,
one pace, one level. So it's a really good tool to use when you're trying to teach young actors the techniques that they have to utilize without letting the audience know they're utilizing them.
Yeah, and you could definitely see in this scene how physical Shakespeare is, how what their actions most often, hopefully, if the production is doing it justice, will put into physicality what the words are. And this one is a little bit more stagnant than some other interpretations that I've seen. But
yet it still is that bare stage.
Yep.
Your hero Peter Brook, you know, I mean, it's you don't really need anything on the stage except trained actors that can deliver the text with this.
Right. All right, let's finish it.
And now, so you will let me quiet go? To Athens will I bear my folly back and follow you no further? Let me go. You see how simple and how fond I am? Why get you gone? Who has that him to see? How foolish heart that I leave here behind? What with Lysander? With Demetrius?
Be not afraid, she shall not harm thee, Helena. Herself she shall not, though you take a part.
When she's angry, she's keen and shrewd. She was a vixen when she went to school. And though she be but little, she is fierce. Little again! Nothing but low and little. Why would you suffer her to flout me thus? Let me go!
Oh, get you, John, you swore!
Oh.
That's a tough scene too for Demetrius and Lysander because, and they have to stand there for such a long time while they're tangling with each other, and yet they're at the height of tension, and they have all these things going on, and you can't check out. I mean, you have to stay physically engaged in the scene. And I know you've pointed this out to those guys as I have for years.
Oh yeah,
But
and
guys, you know, Hermia's yelling at Helena. What are you going to do? I mean, you see what I'm saying?
I think almost every time that I've ever staged this scene, it's been very physical. Again, it's all about the moving parts. It's all about safe stage combat. And this one, like I said, was a little more stagnant than some other interpretations that I've seen before. But it's even in the way that they're attacking each other with their words and the way that they're barely moving. Or you saw the guys like hitting their faces. There's still a little bit of variety in what's happening there. And that all comes from listening to the language. You know, and finding where he's telling you what you're doing with your physicality while you're using the words.
Exactly.
So those are two very, very iconic scenes, I think, in the canon. And there are so many different resources for you while you are healthy at home to look at different ones.
And Apprentice class, especially Jen's section, you guys were doing the entirety of 12th Night. And in my section, we were doing chunks of 12th Night, also chunks of a couple other plays, Midsummer included. But 12th Night is another play that is widely, lots of resources on the internet to go back and look at a variety of different interpretations. In fact, one of the ones we watched recently was the Globe production. Jen knows what I'm talking about because we were both, oh my gosh.
Stay on it.
What's his name?
Mark Rylance.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And they actually just released that again for viewing on now. If you go to Shakespeare's Globe, you can go and look online for a bunch of different ones. I got to see that production live, and it was amazing. Stephen Fry was amazing. He was
the Globe productions. If you get a chance to go look at those, they're really great. Especially, I really love the Henry IV Part 1 and 2. The guy that did Falstaff was outstanding.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great video adaptations too. Really exciting sort of new way of thinking of things. Julie Taymor has a really exciting Titus that's fun to watch. And of course, Kenneth Branagh has done 1,000 different video adaptations of the play, which can kind of give you a different view into the world that Shakespeare was presenting, even though it might not be what you'd see on stage. There's still some cool stuff.
Yeah, and you guys know I think Kenneth Branagh can be hit and miss as an actor, but that's just a matter of opinion.
Yeah, he's very smart and he's very dedicated for sure, but it's not always my taste.
Yeah, in some roles he's great, and in other roles he has a hard time toning it down. Hey, I tell you what, next time, we hope this has been helpful for you guys to go back and review your scripts and also to keep practicing. You know, when we get back next spring, it's when we'll get back to Shakespeare, but hopefully you've still practiced and, you know, and kept yourself sharp. Now, on the next chat with Charlie, we're going to have, do some stuff with the Tuesday, Thursday advanced group. More on that later. So, Jess, thanks for being here today. That was really cool, using the technology, and we hope it's been helpful.
We'll see if it works.
All right, guys, we will see you next time on Chats with Charlie.
See you later.
Bye.